So here we are, sharing secrets of the soil with me, your host, Regenerative. Hello, soil lovers. Welcome to Secrets of the Soil. I'm your host, Regenerative, and today I'm really excited because we're going to go really deep into the wonderful world of mushrooms, which you may know that I'm really passionate about. Nick Ritar, welcome to the call.
Hi, Ray. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. So share with the soil lovers, if they don't know the name already, you work or created Milkwood. Tell us a little bit about you and what you've been up to and your love for soil.
Yeah, Kirsten and I started Milkwood way back in about 2007, I think it was. It's actually maybe even a little bit before that. We found out about permaculture and we got switched on to that, and we were making art in the city way back then, and we had roots to central New South Wales, and we were making art about the environment and how people connected to nature or didn't connect to nature. And we decided that we needed to make a change and actually live the ethos of what we were making our art about. So we took off out of central Melbourne and moved to a little farm, about 1,500 acres in the mountains outside of Mudgee in New South Wales. And we started to try to grow food on that farm. And we quickly learnt that there was lots that we didn't know how to do. So we started getting people to come and teach us. And we started running events and short courses to learn how to look after the land better, to look after the soil. And as we did that, we found that other people wanted to learn as well, and we started Milkwood. And initially we were doing lots of courses for people on larger areas of land because that's where we were at the time. And as time went by, we also started to see a lot of people who were on smaller blocks and who were more interested in home scale self-sufficiency and growing your own food. And we started catering more and more to that group of people. And now, nearly 15 years later, we've had tens of thousands of people do all kinds of different courses around looking after the land and growing your own food and growing food commercially.
Awesome, Nick. That sounds amazing how you've been able to really, create art and educate people and then see where the market needed, more content or more information and support and then create to that. I believe, are you in Tasmania now?
Yeah, so about 3 years ago, we sort of transitioned from doing face-to-face courses and all the stress that was involved in running all these events each year. We were running over 50 courses a year for about 10 years. And we filmed our first online course, and we both background in video and technology and actually online learning as well from way back. And we had been reticent for a long time to sort of leap into online courses. And about the start of 2019, we decided to make the move to online courses and try to reach more people that way, because it's hard for people to travel and make time to attend a face-to-face course. And in about October that year, we launched our Permaculture Living course. And at that point, we were like, well, where do we want to live? We had that flexibility now because we didn't have to travel to do these courses. And we decided on southern Tasmania. We wanted to be close to the city and close to the ocean and close to the forests, and where we are down near Cygnet is a beautiful place to achieve all those things.
Amazing. I think you are in a very beautiful space, and I've watched your journey over many years, and you're very close to Gourmet farmer, so Matthew Evans. So very good community to be embedded in there.
Yeah, we've got lots of great friends here. There's heaps of people doing, regenerative agriculture and amazing small-scale food production, and it's great schools. It's a lovely place to live, but don't all move here. Yeah. There's already a fair bit of pressure that way.
I know, especially so with COVID and so forth, and maybe your timing was quite good in getting into online learning in 2019, and then we all know what happened in 2020 and onwards, and it seems to be like basically the norm now. And that kind of escape the city and move to rural and country and getting access to land and growing your own food has just become more and more in demand. Have you seen similar patterns and people really wanting to get their head around what it's like to grow their own food and know the farmer?
Oh, for sure. There's been a huge movement. I mean, it's been going for a long time, and I think COVID kind of, obviously amplified that. And with that, there's a lot of people who, don't necessarily know what they're in for, and can find, it quite a challenge to move to small communities or move to remote locations, and all of a sudden have a big chunk of land to manage, and that can be quite confronting, usually about 6 months in. So, people often realise that they've got a bit of a challenge ahead for them.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can help them to ease that transition a little bit and set priorities and understand how to manage the land and feed the soil and make happy and healthy communities.
Absolutely. And feed the soul. And I want to give kudos because your permaculture living course was something I did during COVID. It was like, okay, we're tools down, we're stuck at home. What can I do to, keep the mind active and be proactive and tick off some of the things that have been sitting on my to-do list? And I followed along with one of the live cohorts in early 2020, I think it was. And I was doing it in an apartment, and I wanted to break that paradigm of you need to have access to land in order to do permaculture. And, and the permaculture living really helped me get into my own community and go look at weeds at the park and learn that they're not weeds. They're actually a plant that's, got some, herbal principles and things like that. And I bought foraging books and all that from the course. And, I think that's one of the eye-opening experiences is that you can do it, doesn't matter where you are. So there's a big rush to buy land and everyone goes from I'm living the dream to what have I done? And so the permaculture living is more of a mindset kind of change that I thought. How important is it to you when it comes to mindset, making these transitions and caring for soil?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of paramount. I think that people, forget how intimately connected they are to the natural world. It's easy in our modern lives to live under this sort of pretense that that the food that we eat and the water that we drink and the air that we breathe are just always going to be there and always going to be happy and healthy. And the reality is, everything that we consume and everything that we need to survive is effectively coming to us from the natural world. And we are deeply and intimately connected to it. And even though we, breathe air that is filtered through HEPA filters and drink water that appears to come out of a tap magically and use energy that comes from far away, the reality is the basis of all that is the natural world and the ecosystems that support that. So, our courses are really designed to help people to mentally reconnect with the natural world and engage with it in a way which is positive for themselves, positive for the natural environment, and positive for their community. And, we really love that quote by the African-American tennis player Arthur Ashe that, start where you are, use what you have and do what you can. Most people don't have access to, large areas of land. A lot of the soil lovers that follow your podcast are lucky enough to have access to a little bit more in the way of resources. But there's a lot of people out there who, don't have that amount of space. And we want to make sure that we appeal to everyone.
Yeah, and it always starts in your own backyard, so even if it is a balcony and even if it is, a small bit of land that you've got in suburbia, like it all starts in that, and then, starts in your mind as well to, have the paradigm shifts to know what it's like to grow. That was interesting during COVID where everyone went out and rushed to buy seeds and then they were like planting carrots and like, why is it so hard to grow a carrot? It's so hard, it's impossible. Yet we buy a bag of 10 for $1 and think, how is it possible to get 10 carrots in a bag in a supermarket for $1?
Yeah, and I know plenty of farmers who don't grow any food for themselves or their families, and I think that other old saying that, not that I want to disparage weeds necessarily, but that if a farm has weeds at the kitchen step, it'll have weeds to the boundary, And I think that that's a really powerful way of thinking, that, you have to manage that home environment and that place right next to you, to your house and your home. And that should be the most productive part of your property if you do have a bit more space as well.
Yeah, I love that. I love that in permaculture, the zoning, and you nurture it differently depending how far away from zone zero it is, and the different zones have different care and needs, and just, yeah, it's just a nice way of putting things into little zones, so that way you can manage it better and know, I'm going to visit this a lot more often, so it needs to be in zone zero, zone one. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
For us, it's all about, empowering people, helping people to do the thing that they want to do, and helping them set goals and then achieve those goals and make sure those goals are achievable when they set them. And not, there's a lot of people in this world who, are trying to make you feel guilty or trying to make you feel scared about the future, or feeling guilty for not doing the right thing. And we think that, we've got this incredible opportunity where doing the right thing for the environment and doing the right thing for your community magically helps make you happy and your family happy as well. So it's not a trade-off in my mind.
Yeah, no, I love that. And permission that it doesn't have to be all the time. It's okay to do something, because that's better than nothing.
Yeah, and none of us are perfect. The amount of things that have gone wrong in our permaculture journey and our farming journeys over the years. I mean, so many things. If people want to read good stories about dams failing and stock dying and all kinds of problems, then check out our blog. We try to be pretty honest on there about the challenges that we've faced.
Yeah, I love that. In our over curated, picture perfect Instagram feeds, we sometimes need the realness, and I love that as well. Coming from the startup world, there used to be these events called the F up nights, and it's like you talk about your startup failures and where things went wrong, and when you mucked up, and people learn more from those messed up stories than they do from the success. Thinking everyone's out there crushing it when they're not.
But then on the flip side, of course, we want to try and give people tools that are useful and help them to get somewhere. And with our courses, we're very much focused on achievable things that people can do that really give you bang for your buck in terms of time and effort, and give you really good yields on those efforts that you make.
Yeah, I love that. Where did your curiosity for soil and the land come from? Is there a childhood kind of upbringing, or did you see something that kind of made the penny drop?
Yeah, I was blessed as a child. My parents took over management of a 50,000 acre national park in Western New South Wales when I was only 2 years old, and I lived out there up until my teen years. And so I had this childhood growing up in this beautiful natural environment where we grew most of our own food and raised our own animals, and home slaughtering those animals, and I got to experience the whole self-sufficient world through living in this remote place. The national park had been one of the largest sheep stations in Australia before it had been turned. The home paddock had been turned into a national park. So it had all that infrastructure there, and we were allowed to use it. So it was just my mum and dad and my two sisters and myself out there for about 10 years. And that, I think, gave me a innate appreciation for the beauty of the natural world and the capability of soil to feed us, and the recognition that there was this relationship with the soil, and that had to be reciprocal. And I think that was where it all came from. But then, as Kirsten Bradley, my partner, she came from a really strong activist background, and I think that combination of her influence, really driving a lot of the ethical underpinnings of our choices, and my sort of attachment to land, I think those sat really well together, and that's why we started making art together, and then that's why eventually we started Milkwood.
Love that. It's such a great synergy of coming together and seeing the worlds from the different spaces, and seeing that kind of Venn diagram of overlap and creating art. And I just think that's part of my world that I just don't have a good, or haven't practiced that much, but I love the whole art expression of like, bringing life to stories. I'd love to see more art that tells the story of like the world under a microscope or from the soil, because I think that would be like really cool to see, artists express what the soil life looks like to them through microscopes and things like that. And the world of fungi is just, magical. And the more I've learned of like, this is like, it was my birthday recently and everyone just got me mushroom related things. It's like, here's a mushroom cushion and here's a mushroom, decor.
You should try being a mushroom teacher. The gifts. I get so many great little mushroom gifts. It's one of the fun things.
I can't wait.
I've got so many different things like that. My fascination with fungi definitely came from the soil and came from the sort of whole systems thinking about how nutrients and particularly carbon gets cycled back through, from living plants and animals back into the soil. And fungi obviously play a huge part in that cycle. They're the only thing that can break down the long chains of cellulose and lignin that are produced by woody stem plants. And without them, we'd be, I think it's 75 feet deep in hardwood timber by now, without their ability to break down those long chains and cycle them back into being available for all the other biology that lives in the soil. So that kind of was where I first had my interest in fungi peaked. And then it didn't take very long before I learned that not only can you encourage fungi in the soil, but you can also encourage it to grow in other mediums too. And guess what? Some of those mediums will produce yummy, delicious, health-giving mushrooms. So it kind of grew out of that.
Yeah. And a lot of foraging as well. Do you get out there and go and identify mushrooms and forage for them?
Yeah, it's such a joy. There's, especially this time of year, there's probably about 60 or so species in Australia that are well identified and great mushrooms that you can forage. And people don't realise that. People know maybe one or two. They know about the saffron milkcaps and the slippery jacks. Those pine mushrooms, and maybe they might have eaten a few field mushrooms in their time, and that's kind of the limit of them. But there's so many amazing things. There's, native Australian chanterelles. There's native morels. There's even a native shiitake here in Australia. And then, on top of that, just so many different agaricus species and amazing bolete species like birch boletes, which are one of my favourites to forage. And it doesn't take that long to pick up the experience and knowledge to be able to confidently identify them.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the scary parts is, people hear of all the poisonous ones or the ones that have psychedelic and magic mushroom side of things, and then it's like it puts a blanket warning over it all. And any words of advice for anyone who is foraging and wants to get into that? Is there like some things that you can share about, a warning and...
Yeah, well, I think it's always, as educators, we always play this balance between providing simple rules and simple guidelines and then actually revealing the truth underneath at a rate that people can handle. And I think, the first truth is any mushroom can kill you, and if you don't know what it is, there are some out there which are very dangerous. So there's the most basic thing. If you're not going to put in any effort at all, the rule is don't eat forage mushrooms. So there's the first rule. The second rule is find yourself an old mushroom forager and go foraging with them, because there's old mushroom foragers and there's bold mushroom foragers, but there's no old, bold mushroom foragers.
I love that.
You really want to identify that mushroom and know what species it is before you put it in your mouth. There are no blanket rules. People will tell you if a mushroom has brown gills, it's edible, and if it's got white gills, it's poisonous. That's bullshit. There are plenty of mushrooms that break the rules. They'll say things like if it stains blue or bruises blue, then it's definitely psychedelic, and that's rubbish as well. Every single one of those rules is there are exceptions to it. So I recommend that people they should forage mushrooms like they go fishing. a good fisher person, they have a target species that they're going to try to catch. They go out, today we're going to go fishing for flathead, or today we're going to go fishing for bream. And they have the right rig and they go to the right place at the right time to catch that fish. So it's the same with mushrooms. Pick yourself a species that you want to go foraging. So let's say it's saffron milkcaps, the beautifully named Lactarius deliciosus. What a gorgeous name. It's the milky, delicious mushroom, the saffron milkcap. It bleeds a saffron-coloured sap when you cut its gills. That's a really easy mushroom to forage. It's all through pine forests through southeast Australia and right up to the Queensland border and in Western Australia as well. You go, okay, I'm going to go find the saffron milkcap, the Lactarius deliciosus. I'm going to go find that one. And you look at photos of it and you get confident. And then you go, what mushrooms look like this? So you go saffron milkcap lookalikes, and you learn what mushrooms might look a little bit like that. Now you know what the ones that you're looking for look like, and you know what the ones that you're not looking for look like. And then you go to the right place, a pine forest, at the right time of year from, let's say, sort of April through till July. And you go out to that forest, and when you find the mushroom, you'll be really confident that that's the right one.
Yeah, I love that tip. I think that is such a great resource that people can use, is like, don't go out foraging for all the mushrooms and then get confused and trying to remember all the identifications. It's like, just focus on one, learn the lookalikes, and really kind of the world of like, just focus on one task or focus on one foraging type, and then just go deep on that. I think that's great.
Yeah, and you get this sixth sense for them after a while. And, it's like if somebody said to you, describe a tomato, you'd go, well, it's a red round fruit, but there's a lot of red round fruit out there. So you've got to start trying to think of everything about it. And it's the smell, and it's the shape of the stem, and, it's the kind of level of gloss on the leaves. And all of a sudden there's all these different things that help you identify a tomato. And you've not had those things described to you necessarily. What you've had is the experience of picking a tomato or seeing a tomato in the garden enough times so that you recognise it. The same thing happens to mushrooms. I walk out into the forest now, and I'll see a mushroom, and the name just sort of appears somewhere in the back of my head, and somebody say, what kind of mushroom is that? And I go, it's a so-and-so. And they'll go, how do you know that? And I'm like, well, it kind of, and then I try to put words as to why I know it, and they often fail me.
Yeah. No, I love that. And like, the information is just in the back of your mind for when you need it. If you needed to remember the name of it randomly, you probably wouldn't, and even forget that you remember it. But the minute you see it, there it is, like a light bulb turning on. And I think, that's, that old saying of like, experience trumps knowledge. You can learn all the textbooks and try and do all the characteristics, but until you actually go out there and do it, and even your tip about going out there with someone who is old and not bold.
Or maybe just a little more experienced than what you are. There might be a young person. I know some amazing young people who are great foragers. Getting that experience out in the field.
Old in age, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Maybe wise would be better.
But it doesn't rhyme with bold and old, so I like that saying. I love that. I think, the world of fungi and mushrooms is one that's going to, kind of explode and get really exciting. And especially like, from my soil loving knowledge and the mycelium network, and just seeing how all the research that's coming out that all these trees are connected and they're communicating, and there's an economy under the ground, and they're exchanging minerals and sugars and
even water. There's evidence now that they literally transport water to feed seedlings of tree species that they want to support.
Yeah.
It's absolutely phenomenally complex. There's very credible ecologists now and scientists who are talking about forests essentially being sentient. That their fungal connections act like neural connections, and that they can react to challenges and plan ahead and make decisions that are beyond the capabilities of individual parts of that forest and beyond the capabilities of most animals. So I think the research is incredibly exciting about the way they act in the natural world and also what they can do for us. it's kind of one of those places right now. It's so dynamic, the world of mycology, the study of fungi, it's almost in every field that there is some way that fungi can engage in that field, whether it be material sciences, whether it be medical sciences, or of course food, farming, and our favourite, looking after the soil.
I just think it's so amazing that people are starting to put their life's work to this study and field. And I always scratch my head to think, why has it taken so long, that we know more about the deep oceans and the surface of the moon and Mars than what we do of our own planet, And I've just finished reading a book called The Hidden Life of Trees, and it's about a forest caretaker, and he just shares his experience. And one of the things that blew my mind is he talks about trees walking and like moving, and not the physical tree, but the mother tree will make sure that the son or daughter tree thrives in its absence, and they move closer to where they need to be for the success of that species. I was like, what? This is like mind-blowing stuff, and it was just such a beautifully written book, and coming from his voice of being a forest caretaker was just magical. There's no other word to explain it.
There's some beautiful things out there. Like another interesting one that they've noticed that fungi are doing now is adapting to climate change, or adapting the forest to climate change. Wow. Fungi will literally receive nutrients and sugars from a species of tree which is under stress, and they will transport those nutrients and sugars to species of trees which are better able to deal with climate change. So they'll actually transition a forest's mix of species over to one so that the forest itself is more resilient against changing climate, which is just phenomenal. And the fact that, like what you said there, they are really intelligent and smart. It's just that they move slowly, and sometimes the environment, like a fire, comes through quicker than what the trees can send that signal out to say a fire's coming, so by the time, but it's still there. The evidence of them communicating and connected is still there. And I think that's a wonderful world that we should all be kind of more conscious about, and take the effort, and conversations like this, I hope, shed the curiosity for people to then go, oh, I didn't know that, I'm going to dig deeper. For sure.
On that note, we're going to take a quick break, soil lovers, so stick with us. When we come back, we're going to talk about the fungi course that Milkwood is about to put together and promote, and we want to get you excited about learning more about mushrooms in your own back gardens. Stay with us. Hello, soil lovers. I hope you're enjoying today's guest and this podcast, but I wanted to just let you know that when you get excited about soil, just as you're hearing about our guests, then you will want to check out the Soil Learning Centre. The Soil Learning Centre is a hub that we put together and digitalized all the content over the years that were originally on DVD into this online learning experience. So if any of our guests or any of the topics that we speak about during the podcast whet your appetite, and you want to get your hands dirtier and dig deeper and get educated around different things around soil, whether it be biodynamics, permaculture, whether it be using a microscope, or whether it just be hanging out with other like-minded educators, mentors, and facilitators, then the Soil Learning Centre is a place for you to hang out and dig deeper. That's the soillearningcentre.com. We have lots of different programs, courses, and even a membership. So if you want to belong to a community of other soil lovers, then that's the place to hang out. Well, until we meet again, enjoy the rest of this podcast. Back to the program. Welcome back, soil lovers. You're hanging out with Regenerative and Nick from Milkwood. We're going to talk about all things fungi, and I think it's really excited about growing mushrooms in your own backyard. And I think you can grow them in buckets and in the garden and even on logs. Nick, share a little bit more about this course about fungi and mushrooms and why you put it together, and how people are getting more interested in cultivating their own mushrooms in their own backyard.
Yeah, well, we started teaching people how to grow mushrooms way back in, I think it was about 2013, 2014, and we started running courses on the farm on how people could actually cultivate gourmet mushrooms themselves in their own homes. And over the years, we had we ran that course, I don't know, more than 100 times. We had so many people come and learn from us, and we hosted other teachers from around the world, and it was a big course. It was a jam-packed with knowledge right up to the the commercial scale on how to take mushrooms to that sort of level where you can earn a living off growing them. And time and time again, we'd have people come to the course and they'd be like, this is great, but I kind of just want to learn how to grow them at home. And there's a lot in here. So when we decided to make an online version of that gourmet mushroom cultivation course, we decided that, you know what, we're going to focus just on how to get people through the first bit, how to get people, regularly growing a harvest of amazing, gourmet mushrooms in their own home for their own family and for their own community, and to do it in a way which doesn't cost the earth, because most of the commercial stuff is really focused around growing mushrooms in disposable plastic. And disposable plastic is something which I want to, I don't want to have as part of my life, and I don't want to encourage people to have it as a major part of their food system. So we had been teaching for a long time different techniques for avoiding those disposable plastic mushroom bags, and I think we've got that down to an art now. So that was really the sort of focus: how to grow gourmet mushrooms at home in a no waste way. Wow. And we've nailed that now. We give people 3 really effective broad techniques that you mentioned. Either growing them in reusable, recycled containers. And we usually try to do that in a somewhat controlled environment. Okay. So we create a controlled environment for them. Or growing them on wood chips and straw and the like in the garden. So that's kind of like a more of a seasonal harvest, which is a little less reliable but can be really bountiful if everything goes well. And the third method we teach is how to take logs, hardwood logs of all different types of species of trees, and inoculate them with a really broad range of gourmet mushrooms and medicinal mushrooms as well, and to do that in the garden on a regular sort of annual kind of basis. And we find that works in great with the idea of having this sort of seasonal mushroom festival at your place where you barbecue shiitakes and invite people around to inoculate a whole bunch of logs.
Wow. I love that inoculation party.
Yeah, exactly.
Quite fun. Yeah, fungi inoculation party. That could be a hitting trend in the future.
We've got heaps of students who do it already. So wow. We're making that trend real.
Ooh, I can't wait. If anyone's got one going, please invite me.
Well, it's a great way to share tools and to learn the process for people who are a little bit more experienced. And that way, and also if you're going to do logs, then you don't want to kind of inoculate one log or 5 logs. It's great if you could do sort of 30 at a time. And then if you've got, you do that between 3 friends, you get to take 10 logs home each, you stack them in the garden, and, in a season or two's time, you'll start getting massive amounts of mushrooms off those.
Wow, so that's the kind of time frame it takes for them to start producing edible fruit.
Yeah, usually we say that, let's say you inoculate them in the autumn, then you'll probably be harvesting from them by the next autumn. Hardwood logs, they're pretty hard to digest, and even miraculous fungi are going to take a little while to hunker down and chew on that material and turn it into mycelium, and then turn it into yummy mushrooms.
Yeah, and just evident that sometimes there isn't that instant gratification of them being on a shelf. There is that patience, time and watching and analysing and observing, and then being more connected from that start to end process.
Yeah, I kind of likened it to it's a great big freight train. Once you get it rolling, it's going to be delivering the goods over and over again. What we find is, per kilo of log. So let's say you've got an average kind of log. It might be, 15 centimetres around by a metre long. That's about an average size log. Mm-hmm. And you're going to inoculate that with, let's say, shiitake mushrooms. For that log might weigh 10 kilos. Over the next 5 years, you're going to get about 10 kilos of shiitake mushrooms off that log.
Wow.
That's a lot of mushrooms. 10 kilos of mushrooms is not a small amount. You think about it. When was the last time you went out and bought 10 kilos? When was the last time you went out and bought, a kilo of mushrooms?
That's right. Normally it's like 200 grams.
Exactly. So it's once you get that log going, it's gonna give you that yield, and it's going to keep yielding year after year for the next about 5 years. So the first year you do 10 logs of one species, and the next year you do 10 logs of another species of mushroom, and the next year you do 10 logs of another species of mushroom, and the next year you do 10 logs of another species. Now you've got 50 logs, and they're all producing a couple hundred grams each per year, and they're doing it over a long period of time because they're different species of mushrooms. Yeah. You're now talking a couple of 100 grams of mushrooms every week.
Wow.
Which is enough to keep a family very happily supplied in a whole range of gourmet mushrooms.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like we have the episode is going to be called "Warning: This will cause you to get addicted to mushrooms," because the 10 logs, 100 logs. It's like I can see how people. I know my personality. I'd probably turn this into some kind of business. I'd be hiring old cool rooms or something and growing mushrooms into it.
Well, it's funny you should say that because we don't promise this is we promise that our course is designed to be how to do the basics so you can learn to grow them so that you can grow them at home. But we've had so many people take what they've learnt in our course and then scale it up to business scales. It's been quite funny. It's almost a running joke now. We run into somebody who's growing mushrooms commercially and then they realise we're Milkwood and then they say, "Oh, I did your mushroom cultivation course all these years ago." And I'm like, it's quite gratifying. But that so many people do turn it into a small business because it is one of those things that they get the same price per kilo as what meat does, except all the food safety stuff treats them like vegetables. So, that does kind of make it a lot easier to get into agriculture because you're getting the meat prices without having to go through the ethical, and complex considerations of looking after an animal and giving that animal a good death. Mushrooms are definitely not as sentient as what most animals are. So there's not the same sort of complex emotions that we go through when we harvest a mushroom.
Yeah, I love that. I think we've got lots of listeners really keen about knowing more about mushrooms. Like, how big of a land do you need? Like, can you do this on an apartment balcony? Do you need dark spaces? I think sometimes people always think that, mushrooms go in like old retired cool rooms, dark place and all that. But you're speaking about logs in the garden, bales of hay. Like, what kind of space do you need?
Well, you keep setting me up for these really corny jokes, Ray. Of course, they don't need mushroom at all. Sorry.
I love that. If anyone knows, I love a dad joke and a good pun, and that was awesome.
So it does depend a little bit. If you're going to grow them in the garden, then you're going to need a little bit more space. And of course, commercially, we've got students who have set up commercial operations with their total operation consists of a pair of 20-foot shipping containers and a little bit of space between them, and they grow close to 100 kilos a week. So that's a serious commercial operation with a fair bit of capital investment. We recommend let's say you go for the bucket cultivation method. That's the most reliable way to get a range of different species, but predominantly the different oyster mushroom species. There's a bunch of oyster mushroom species, it's not just one, and there's dozens and dozens of varieties in each of those species. But we call it the oyster mushroom complex or the pleurotus complex of varieties of mushrooms. If you're going to grow those ones and you want to grow them in recycled plastic food buckets, those white buckets that you get yogurt or feta in or whatever, we encourage that as a way of doing it. One of those little tiny mini greenhouses works as a fantastic fruiting chamber. You can control the airflow and you can control the humidity and even potentially control the temperature a little bit. And with those combinations, you can really dial in the right conditions to make sure that those mushrooms really, develop and flourish and become these beautiful, big, juicy, perfect, tasty, fresh mushrooms, grown on whatever organic substrate that you want to grow them on. So that doesn't take up much of space. That's not tiny. It's way less than a shower cubicle in space.
Yeah, wow. Excellent. Yeah. And so And do they need light, or different mushrooms need different light ratios? Some are indoor, some are outdoor.
So it's funny that that's a bit of a misnomer about that mushrooms enjoy the dark. They do need a period of dark, but pretty much they like a same sort of period of light and dark as what we like. So to get the highest nutrition level and the best colour out of the mushrooms, they should get quite a lot of natural of bright light. The key is that the natural light is often accompanied by heat. Okay. So that's why we don't typically have them anywhere where they can get sunlight, because they do not like to have high temperatures, and they obviously really hate getting dried out. So most of the environments that we're going to grow in are going to be cool and stable in temperature, which means no direct sunlight. So that you can have a naturally lit mushroom growing area, and you just want sort of high south-facing windows rather than sort of direct light smashing onto them. Yeah. Or you can do artificial lighting. They don't need massive intensity. They don't need the amount of light that plants do. So a few LED globes is plenty to help get them the colour that you want.
Yeah, I love that. I started a little herb garden where I live, and I started with like artificial lights. I just felt guilty that they weren't getting real light. I moved them outside. I was like, I just feel like it needs to be more natural. But I like the fact that there's an option, and I know the right place at the right time. But there's just something about things being connected to the earth and the energy and the vibration and the real sunlight, and just makes it feel more wholesome for me. But that's a personal thing for me anyway. And so like I feel like this whole world of mushrooms is aged in its knowledge and resources, but kind of new for people, and maybe not to you because you've been in this space for a while, but as someone who's just recently gotten interested in it and seen a lot of other people getting more interested in it, what do you think's made people be more interested in mushrooms? Is it the fact that they're medicinal? Is it the fact that they're an option for less meat eating? Is it a combination of everything?
I think there's some of the sort of key ideas. I think it's just that, for a long time there were these weird, miraculous things that popped out of the ground. We didn't understand where their actual body was. Their fruits just appear, which is kind of freaky. And, of course, there are some out there that can kill you, and there's other ones that can give you hallucinations. And all of that creates an air of mystique around them that I'm not surprised that people have, phobias around mushrooms because of those things. But as time has passed and we've learnt more and more about what an important role they play, I think that people have just, learnt more and become more and more fascinated by them. And as you said, we're learning more and more about the different health benefits that they provide, and also about their different roles in the environment. And that's just gotten people, well on board. And that's an amazing and fantastic thing, because, there's not very many things out there that you can feed a whole bunch of waste products to, and they, give you this health-giving protein and energy-rich, amazingly tasty food. It's miraculous, And I think one of the things that really gets me about them is that they're not plants and they're not animals. They're their own kingdom, and they behave in their own really special way. And when you start sort of engaging with these other kingdoms of life that you're not so familiar with, it like really gives you another level of appreciation for how beautiful and complex this incredible planet that we live on is.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's a great way of putting it, and that curiosity means that we are learning more about them and discovering for ourselves what it means. And I always love the fact that, the fungi is almost like the start of life, but also the end of life. It's like that circular system. It's
closes the loop.
Yeah, but also opens the loop as well. Like you're right, they just sit in this own kind of category, and, without fungi, as you had created that vision before, we would just be living in a planet with all these logs stacked up on top of each other. Like there'd be nothing there to break it down. And I think people have lost connectivity that, when a tree falls in the forest, it needs to break down and be decomposted in some way. And fungi is what's doing that,
Yeah, totally. I think one of the things about growing them is really different is I've often talked about people, there's farmers who farm animals and there's farmers who farm plants, and there's subsets of those annual plants and perennial, plants are slightly different. But animal farmers have daily chores. You know, if you're looking after animals, you've got the chores to do that day. You've got to make sure they've got food and water or move them. And plant farmers have this longer cycles, annual kind of cycles of planting and harvesting that go for much longer periods of time. And fungi farmers are kind of somewhere in between. You know, the fungi, they can't just grow off sunlight. You know, that's plants' magical power. That's their superpower. Fungi haven't got that. They do have to be fed something, or they have to eat something that has already been made usually by a plant. But at the same time, they don't require the daily chores that animals do. You know, they can be left for longer and have these longer cycles. So they do really create a different sort of frequency and rhythm of your life if you're engaging with them on a regular basis. And that's kind of nice to mix it up because, you know, you've got this one rhythm with the animals, you know, the chickens or the goats or whatever animals you've got in your life. You've got this other rhythm with your vegetables and with your fruit trees. And then this other rhythm that fits in amongst those, which is the annual cycles of feeding the mushroom gardens and inoculating the mushroom logs, and then the monthly sort of cycles of preparing sawdust and straw to inoculate then and pack into buckets to then feed the weekly cycle of harvesting the mushrooms and the daily cycle of cooking them.
Yeah, I love that. I can't wait to get experimenting with that. And just that even growing them here in the office that I've got and even at home, and super keen to get in on the next course that you're running. One thing that I'm wanting to know is it just self-paced learning, or is there like community and live calls? And I feel like some questions will pop up all the time. Is there that support, or is it just, you know, self-paced learning?
Yeah, we've been trying to settle on a model for our courses, and we have settled on a model for our courses that are a combination. We have people go through in cohorts, so rather than there being people at all different stages through the courses, we do encourage people to all start at the same time. And that way, they all have a shared experience. So we have cohorts starting every 3 months or so for both of our courses and our new veggie garden course when that comes online. And then there's a combination of self-paced learning, and you get emails each week encouraging you and explaining what's going to happen in that week, so that you can get resources at the right times and make sure that you're ready for the different stages of the course. And then we have live Q&As as well as part of that, and we have an amazing community of students now who are all posting their successes and their failures and asking questions on how to solve it. So, and we have a crew of mentors who are answering all those questions, all the time. You know, you won't go more than a day or two before your questions will get answered by not just this amazing community of other students, and we're thousands in at this point of students who are in that community, but also trained. We've got a trained mycologist, Kane, on staff who is an absolute expert in the field who will be able to answer any of your questions about the whole process. And then Kirsten and I are also in there engaging, and then we do these lives as well to help people really to make sure that there's no barriers. That's our goal, is to find any barriers to people's success and knock them down for the entire student community.
Yeah, love that. I think that's such a great happy medium of learning, but then also having support, but then also being able to learn out loud and help others. And, the student becomes, the intermediate coach and helping others when they have questions. I think that's a great way of taking knowledge, but then gifting it back to the community for new students and others who become interested. So a great kind of happy medium with that. Nick, are you ready to become the voice of the soil?
For sure.
Excellent. Well, you are now the soil. You've embodied its properties, and it's got a mouth, and you are its mouthpiece. What would you tell us on Earth if you were the voice of the soil?
Well, I like that organic matter. I want you to be giving me organic matter in just about every form. If it has lived, it can live again through my gut, and my gut is fungi. My teeth are fungi. The thing that I will shred your organic matter with is my teeth, and they are all the different species of beautiful fungi that live amongst me.
Beautiful. Organic matter matters.
It certainly does.
I love that reminder of organic matter. Feed it to me. I got a great picture of the fungi having teeth, chomping down that organic matter and turning it into new fun life. So
yeah.
That's a beautiful picture to share with our soil lovers. Nick, I know people are going to be curious about doing your courses, whether it be permaculture living, whether it be the mushroom course, and you dropped a little hint that you're doing a garden course in the future, which I'm super keen to watch the progress of that. So how can people hang out with you more and get information and see what's on offer and when?
We've got a whole bunch of free resources. Probably the easiest way is people can get some of the free resources. So we actually have a growing mushrooms in buckets guide, which is just a great big PDF, which basically lays out the whole process. That's on our website, and I'm sure you'll send through some links to those kind of things. But then like I said, our home mushroom cultivation course, it does happen about 4 times a year. And the easiest way to find out more about that is on our website. There is a sign up page to sign up to basically reserve your spot, and people who are signed up there get first dibs on spaces in the course, basically. Yep. Awesome. It's got all the details about when they're starting. There's another one starting kind of mid-July. So I think it's actually open for bookings from the 11th of July. But every 3 months or so, a new one starts up.
Awesome. So if you're listening to this podcast just as it's about to get released, then there is a course probably opening up really, really right now. And if not, they're every 3 months. So there will always be links around the videos or the podcast or the show notes, wherever you're listening to this from. And, I might talk to Nick off the airway about maybe a sneaky little coupon code for our soil lovers.
I reckon we can do something for all the soil lovers out there.
Excellent. Well, there you go, soil lovers. You're hearing it first. Nick, it's been such an amazing chat talking to you about your journey and your amazing contribution that you have all been giving through the Milkwood brand. And so I really thank you for all that. And I'm really excited to jump on board on the next cohort and do the mushroom course together with everyone. And it'll be coinciding with our microscope course. So I'm really keen to start looking at soil more under the microscope and seeing that world that exists in our soil, because a lot of people need to see before they can believe, So.
For sure. One of my great joys is looking at little bits of mycelium and fungal hyphae through a microscope. They're pretty gorgeous little critters.
Yeah, that's it. What a wonderful new world. Well, thanks for shedding light on this world. And I am going to steal your mushroom quote, because I am still laughing about it every time I think about it. So I love a good pun. So Nick, thank you so much for coming along and sharing your world of wisdom with our soil lovers.
Great to talk to you again, Ray. And thanks for having me.
Excellent. Well, there you go, soil lovers. Another dig deeper conversation all about mushrooms. And so check out the links, and we're very excited to shed light on the next cohort and also the ones in the future working with Milkwood to really deliver more information on how you can live lighter and more sustainable and regeneratively on our planet. So until next time, get outside, get your hands dirty, dig into the wonderful world of soil. And remember, you don't need mushroom to get started with mushrooms. Till next time, I'm Regenerative. Stay curious. Well, soil lovers, that's enough secrets for one episode. I really hope that you enjoyed all the secrets shared during this conversation. But hey, let's not keep it a secret. Please share this podcast around and make sure that you like it and leave us a review, because that really helps spread the secrets of the soil. Until next time, remember, get outside, get your hands dirty, and keep digging deeper into your soils.